When my wife, Jenna, first mentioned divorce, it wasn't a tearful conversation. It was a performance. She stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, eyes cold, like she was auditioning for the role of a woman taking control of her life. I'd known for months things weren't great between us. But the way she said it, so rehearsed, so smug, told me she'd already made up her mind. "I just don't feel fulfilled anymore," she said, twirling her wedding ring between her fingers. "You've changed, Mark. You've gotten boring, predictable." I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but instead, I just nodded. "Okay," I said quietly. "If that's how you feel." She frowned. She hadn't expected calm acceptance. She wanted drama, guilt, maybe even a begging session. But all she got was silence. The truth was, I'd seen this coming. For the last 6 months, Jenna had been different. Late-night work dinners, constant phone scrolling, new clothes, and a sudden obsession with finding herself. I'd even found messages on her tablet, nothing explicit, but suggestive enough. The kind that left you with no real proof but a gut full of certainty. When I brought it up once, she laughed. "Oh, come on, you're being paranoid. Not everything's about you." So when she finally said the words, "I want a divorce," I wasn't surprised, just disappointed in how proud she looked saying them. A week later, her tone had changed. She was coldly polite, already in full independent woman mode. She'd hired a lawyer, posted a few vague quotes on Instagram about freedom and self-love, and moved into her sister's place. I got an email from her lawyer the next day outlining her demands: half the house, half the savings, and none of the debt she'd accumulated from her personal projects. That made me laugh, because if Jenna had one talent, it was spending money she didn't earn. Still, I didn't react. Just told my own lawyer, let her think she's in control. He nodded slowly, almost amused. "You have a plan, don't you?" "Oh yeah," I said. "She wanted to make this easy. I'll make it easier." The next few weeks were a quiet storm. Jenna strutted into mediation, acting like she was walking a runway. Her smirk said everything she thought she'd won before we'd even started. "Do you honestly think you can change my mind about the divorce?" she asked, flipping her hair as she sat across from me. I smiled, calm as ever. Already did. Her brows furrowed in confusion just as I slid the revised agreement across the table. Her smirk started to fade the moment she saw the last page, because under the new terms. She wasn't just walking away from the marriage. She was walking straight into the financial storm she'd created herself. The air in that conference room shifted the second Jenna started flipping through the pages. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering something, but I could tell by the crease forming between her brows that she didn't like what she was reading. Her smirk disappeared entirely when she hit the financial section. "Wait," she said sharply, looking up. "What is this?" I leaned back, calm as ever. "That," I said, "is you getting everything you asked for. The house, the accounts, the car, and all the debt tied to them." Her jaw tightened. "Can't be serious. That debt isn't mine. Most of it was joint." Was I corrected? Not anymore. "You said you wanted full independence, no attachments?" "I'm giving you exactly that." Jenna's lawyer, a sharp-looking man in an overpriced suit, cleared his throat. "Mr. Carter, this is highly unconventional." "Not really," my lawyer replied coolly. "My client simply agreed to all her terms, including the financial responsibilities that come with them." She can have everything she demanded. As long as she also assumes everything that was under her name or shared through her usage. See, Jenna had made one major mistake. She'd wanted the big things, the assets, but hadn't considered the fine print. Her designer spending sprees, her business ventures, her constant credit card balance rotations. All those fell neatly under her own name. I'd spent weeks quietly untangling our finances before mediation. Every account she used exclusively, every card, every joint expense that was really hers, I'd separated and documented with timestamps. She'd built her independence on a financial house of cards. And now she was realizing she was the only one holding it up. Her face went pale. "You can't actually expect me to pay all this," she snapped. I smiled faintly. "You said you wanted freedom, Jenna. Freedom comes with responsibility." For once, she was speechless. The silence stretched for a long, satisfying moment. Her lawyer tried to intervene again, muttering about revisions and fairness, but I stopped him. She said she didn't want to negotiate anymore. She said she was done pretending. Said this. I gestured to the papers. Is me respecting that? Across the table, Jenna looked like someone realizing the game wasn't rigged in her favor anymore. My lawyer slid a pen toward me. I signed the documents without hesitation. Then I looked at Jenna. Your turn. Her hand shook slightly as she signed, her confidence unraveling with every stroke of the pen. When it was done, I stood, straightened my jacket, and turned to my lawyer. Let's make sure everything's filed immediately. As we walked out, I glanced back one last time. Jenna was staring down at the papers like they were burning in her hands the first time I'd ever seen her truly realize the weight of her own choices. And for me, it was the first time in years I'd felt completely free. Walking out of that mediation room felt surreal, like stepping off a roller coaster that had gone on for years. The air outside was cold, crisp, grounding. I hadn't realized how much tension I'd been carrying until it finally lifted. Jenna used to joke that I was too patient, that I'd let anyone walk over me. Maybe she believed it because I never fought her tantrums head-on. I'd learned early that people like her feed off reaction. So I gave her none, just quiet moves, one by one, until the board flipped in my favor. My lawyer Natalie chuckled as we stepped into the elevator. I have to say, that was masterful. You played it perfectly. I didn't play, I said, half smiling. I just stopped trying to win a game she'd already forfeited for months. Jenna had treated our marriage like a business deal she could renegotiate at will. Every argument ended with her saying, maybe we're just not right for each other anymore, like she was dangling the threat of divorce for leverage. Eventually, I called her bluff. When I started preparing the separation documents months before she ever filed, it wasn't out of malice, it was survival. I'd quietly redirected my energy from fixing the relationship to protecting myself. By the time she said, you can't change my mind had already changed. That night, I stopped by a bar I used to go to after work. Not to celebrate, just to breathe. The bartender, an old friend, slid a glass toward me. Rough day? He asked. I smirked. More like long overdue. Halfway through my drink, my phone buzzed. Jenna, I stared at the screen for a moment before opening it. I'll admit, there was a part of me that still wished it hadn't ended this way. We'd once been good together before money, ambition, and ego twisted everything into competition. But by the end, she didn't want a partner. She wanted a mirror that reflected her control. A few days later, I got confirmation from Natalie that the papers were officially filed and binding. Jenna couldn't undo it. Every clause, every signature airtight. I took a deep breath, stepped outside, and realized something simple but powerful. Peace doesn't always come from reconciliation. Sometimes it comes from release. I deleted Jenna's number that night. No drama, no speeches, just a quiet end to a very loud chapter. But of course, peace doesn't always stay peaceful for long, not when pride is bruised. Because a week later, I got another text from Jenna. This time it wasn't anger, but it was panic. Jenna, can we talk? I think we made a mistake. I stared at it for a long time before typing my reply. Me. You were right the first time, after that final text exchange. I thought that would be the end of it, that she'd finally accept what she'd fought so hard to destroy. But Jenna wasn't the type to let go quietly. When she realized her confidence couldn't reverse what I'd done, she shifted tactics. 3 days later, she showed up at my office. No warning, no appointment, just waltzed past reception with that same sharp smile she used when she wanted something. Ethan, she said softly, leaning against my doorway like nothing had happened. You've made your point. I overreacted. But we don't have to make this ugly. I looked up from my laptop.com, but tired. It's already done, Jenna. She sighed dramatically, crossing her arms. You're really just going to throw everything away? Over some paperwork and pride? Paperwork, I repeated, setting down my pen. That paperwork gives you exactly what you asked for. Freedom. You said you were done pretending. I gave you that. She laughed, but it was hollow this time. You think you've won, huh? I met her gaze evenly. There was nothing to win, just something to end. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, but couldn't find the words. Her confidence faltered for a second, just a flicker, but I caught it. Then she noticed a file on my desk, a folder from the investment firm I'd recently joined. Her eyes narrowed.
Ass.
You're doing well, she said quietly, as if the realization stung. Better than before, I replied, not to brag, just to remind her that life hadn't stopped when she walked away. She stepped closer. You could have told me you were planning all this. The separation, the accounts, Even this job. Psst, you blindsided me. I raised an eyebrow. Shh. You didn't want partnership, Jenna. You wanted power. I just stopped giving it to you. For a long moment, she just stood there, staring at me like she was trying to piece together who I'd become, or maybe who I'd always been, and she'd never noticed. Finally, she muttered, "You're colder than I remember." I leaned back in my chair. "No, just done pretending to be the man you could manipulate." She turned to leave, but hesitated at the door. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "Nobody wins forever." "Neither do losers," I said simply. When she was gone, I sat there for a long while, letting the silence fill the space she used to occupy. It didn't feel like victory, it felt like balance, like life finally settling after years of chaos. That evening, I got a call from Natalie, my lawyer. She tried to contest the debt clause, she said, amused. Judge already denied it. It's binding. I laughed for the first time in months. Guess she finally learned the difference between confidence and control. But even then, I knew Jenna wasn't finished. When pride gets bruised that deep, it doesn't just fade, it looks for a way to strike back. And she found hers sooner than I expected. It started with whispers. Friends mutual to both of us began sending screenshots, small fragments of a larger scheme Jenna was brewing. She'd been posting vague updates on social media, the kind that sounded innocent until you knew the context. Some people only show loyalty when they're in control, one post read. Another, "Funny how quick love turns cold when the money shifts." At first I ignored it, let her vent. But then she started mentioning my name, not directly, but close enough for anyone to connect the dots. Suddenly, I was the man who manipulated her into debt, the cold ex who ruined her life. I knew this wasn't about reputation. It was about ego. She couldn't stand that she'd lost control of the story. So, I stayed quiet. I didn't argue online or call her out. Instead, I kept building my life, my work, my circle, my peace. I even started reconnecting with old friends I'd drifted from during the chaos of our marriage. Then, one night, Natalie called again. "You're going to love this," she said, amusement dripping through the phone. Jenna just filed a motion claiming emotional damages from the divorce terms. I chuckled. "Let me guess," she said I deceived her. "Worse," Natalie replied. "She said you took advantage of her state of distress when she signed the papers. Her lawyer didn't even realize she bragged online about how she outsmarted you that same week." I laughed so hard I had to sit down. "You're kidding?" "Nope. I already sent the screenshots to the judge's clerk. This'll be over before it starts." It was surreal watching her implode from a distance. Every attempt to regain control only dug her deeper into the mess she'd created. Still, I didn't celebrate. There wasn't joy in watching someone unravel, just relief that I was no longer in the blast radius. A month later, I ran into her at a mutual friend's event. I hadn't expected to see her there, and judging by the flash of shock in her eyes, neither had she. She looked smaller somehow, not physically but in presence. The same woman who once commanded every room now stood off to the side, avoiding eye contact. When she finally approached, her tone was different, quieter, uncertain. "Ethan," she said softly, "I didn't mean for things to go this far." I sipped my drink, measured my words. "You meant every step, Jenna. You just didn't expect to trip over your own pride." Her eyes welled up, and for a moment, the mask dropped. I was angry. "You made me feel accountable," I finished for her. She didn't reply, just turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. As I watched her go, I realized something simple but powerful. Closure isn't always about forgiveness. Sometimes it's about seeing the truth with enough clarity that you no longer need answers. And as it turned out, I wasn't the only one who finally saw Jenna clearly. A few weeks after that awkward encounter, I received an unexpected email, not from Jenna, but from her attorney. Apparently she wanted to revisit the settlement terms privately, to avoid further embarrassment in court. Translation: she finally realized what her pride had cost her. I forwarded the message to Natalie, who simply replied, "We're done here. Let her live with her decisions." And she was right. There was nothing left to negotiate. Everything had been signed, sealed, and filed. That night, I sat alone in my apartment. No shouting, no tension, no endless walking on eggshells. Just quiet, peaceful, heavy quiet. I hadn't realized how much noise Jenna brought into my life until it was gone. Out of curiosity, I checked her social media again. The posts had stopped. The carefully curated photos, the indirect quotes gone. Instead, there was a single story, a dark screen with the words, "Sometimes you only understand love when it's too late." Maybe she meant me. Maybe she didn't. Either way, I didn't respond. Weeks turned into months, focused on myself, my health, my business, and the people who had stuck by me. For the first time in years, I was building something that didn't depend on someone else's moods or insecurities. Then, one morning, as I was locking up my office, a small envelope was waiting under my door. No return address, just my name. Inside was a photo of us taken years ago, smiling like we had the world ahead of us. On the back, written in her familiar looping script, were 5 words: "I hope you're truly happy." I folded the photo carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. I didn't keep it because I missed her. I kept it as a reminder that love without respect isn't love at all. Sometimes, losing someone isn't a tragedy. It's a release. Jenna once asked if I could ever change her mind about leaving. Turns out I didn't have to. She changed it herself when she realized I'd already walked away with everything that truly mattered: my peace, my dignity, and my future. And that was worth more than any settlement ever could be. If you've made it this far, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.